As violence rages out of control in Chicago, President Trump finally making good on that promise to send in federal help. Tweeting this morning, crime and killings in Chicago have reached such epidemic proportions that I'm sending in federal help. 1,714 shootings in Chicago this year. And now 20 ATF agents will be sent to Chicago to help out with that murder and violence epidemic there. And I've been telling you this for a long time, for years, in fact, that they need help. Joining me now to help discuss Lawrence Jones, Gina Loudon is back because she had to get back in there. You're so fired up, Gina, and Gianno Caldwell. I'll always start with you in this Chicago because, Gianno, you're a Chicago native. And I thought it was interesting because when you read the news headlines, like The Economist suggested that this is the beginning of an invasion of the federal government and martial law. And then, you know, on the other side, I think some conservatives thought it was something, but it feels like, from what I'm reading and understanding, ATF is there to try to find out where the guns are coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that this is an invasion or a start of martial law. I got to tell you, my little brother has been impacted personally by the violence. During Memorial Day weekend, he was in a car with two of his friends when two young men walked up to the car and riddled the car with 25 bullets. From there, that impacted me to the degree, and thankfully he lived. His best friend died in his arms.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. That happened just this past weekend?
That happened Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
So his best friend died in his arms. I had to do something immediately. I set up a meeting with the Trump administration, went and talked to some senior officials, and I told them that President Trump must keep his commitment to the tweet, which is if Chicago doesn't fix the carnage, he will send the feds. There's a multi-pronged strategy needed for Chicago, which includes law enforcement as well as job training and actual jobs. This has got to stop, Charles. I'm completely and totally devastated about what I've seen. And it doesn't just stop with the people that are on there committing the murders. The mayor of Chicago, the Chicago leadership does not care, Charles. Rahm Emanuel could care less unless it has something to do with sanctuary cities and protecting illegal immigrants so he can continue to get reelected. Black lives don't matter to Rahm Emanuel. Hispanic votes matter to Rahm Emanuel. And I'm going to say that again. Black lives do not matter to Rahm Emanuel. Hispanic votes matter to Rahm Emanuel. And I'm going to encourage every tourist under the sound of my voice, do not spend another dollar in Chicago until Rahm Emanuel start taking this epidemic seriously. Because right now he doesn't care, Charles.
Lawrence, you know, the focus on guns and where they're coming from, cutting that off, it's admirable. But ultimately, that's an inanimate object, and it doesn't pull the trigger itself. There's a much deeper issue at hand here.
Right. And I respect my brother, Gianno, but I think it's deeper when it comes to economic prosperity. When you're talking about a poor education system, when you're talking about kids that live in single-parent homes that don't have father figures, you have to change the culture in Chicago. Just by sending feds in to tackle guns isn't going to solve the problem. You have to change the culture, and that's what I'm afraid of. But when you start with just a gun strategy, it makes it seem like it's just a gun problem in Chicago. It's not. It's a cultural problem. It's a poverty issue in Chicago, and that leads to violent behavior. And right now, you're just taking the tools that they're using for violent behavior. You're not actually attacking the problem within
Lawrence,
Chicago. That's my concern.
The federal government, though, I would think they would have a limited role in getting to the roots of this. That's something the community itself will have to eventually figure out.
And that's been my argument. Like I said, I'm not from Chicago, but that's been my argument from the very beginning, that you have to change Chicago from inside the community, not the federal government coming in.
Lawrence, but what about the people that continue to die? We got to do something right away. My little sister texted me this morning saying that her best friend was shot in the head just yesterday. We got to do something, and this is just one step. We can't. Yeah, culturally, I agree with you on that. Absolutely, 100%. But there has to be a start, something to start to get the guns out of the hands of people. But people will do it either way. They'll use a knife, they'll use a gun, whatever. We have to do something immediately.
And that's my whole point. They're going to use whatever tools that they have to do. Right. Just taking the guns, they'll go across the border to get more guns.
The guns make it easier, but that's not the root of the problem. Gina?
Exactly.
The root of the problem is so evident. You take any big city that has been run by decades for Democrats, and you can see that Democrat policies like blaming the guns fail every single time.
Definitely.
Name one shooting, one mass shooting, name one mass shooting you can think of that ever occurred where there wasn't a gun-free zone. And yet the Democrats continue as their policy to rail on the guns as the problem instead of the cultural problems as the problem and the political problems as the problem. And they always want to blame the victims. This is exactly why that, again, freedom actually works in the places where people have the freedoms, they have their Second Amendment freedoms.
They actually need more
These
legal
things
gun
are much
owners.
less prevalent.
Real quick, Gianna, I want to give you the last word here again. You know, in Chicago, a lot of blacks have moved out. Middle-class blacks have fled like crazy. And, you know, I don't know if there ever will be able to elect another Harold Washington per se. So, so without any political leverage, with the mayor who doesn't seem to care, is it a hopeless situation?
I think that this next election is pivotal. I think that we absolutely have to get Rahm Emanuel out of office. There's no question about that. We have to get him out because he could care less about the black people that are dying in the streets on an hourly basis.
But
if it's not
will they
about
get
getting
him out?
Hispanic votes, he could care less.
All right.
So if folks want to do something in Chicago, let's start there. We'll continue with the Trump administration and what they're looking to do. And obviously training, jobs, that's important. Lawrence's point is also important. It's a cultural thing. But we must do something now. People are dying. This is a serious issue.
Thank you all very, very much. Have a great 4th of July. And Gianna, my prayers out to your family. I had no idea about that.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
No.
Well, 6 months down.